Text is recognized for 4 minutes.
I thank the gentleman for yielding. I listened very carefully to the distinguished gentleman from Massachusetts, the chairman of the Financial Services Committee, who indicated that part of the package before us was a request of the Bush administration. It may be a request of the Bush administration, but it was necessitated by that gentleman and by others who for years have forestalled any type of reform of Fannie and Freddie. Neither man nor beast, half private, half public. You can go back, Mr. Speaker, and look at the record. Before I arrived here almost 6 years ago, the debate has been ensuing, how can you have these entities that essentially are able to privatize their profits but socialize their losses and not put the taxpayers at risk? Now, we were told, well, there's no taxpayer guarantee here. There's nothing to worry about. I've got a press release here dated 01 from the chairman of the Capital Market Subcommittee who says that the new GSE bill is a solution in search of a problem, that OFEO has developed and implemented a robust and comprehensive and continuous examination program that works. Well, many of us have said, no, that is wrong. I've got language from, again, the distinguished gentleman from Massachusetts who says, dating back to a hearing in 03, quote, I believe there has been more alarm raised about potential unsafety and unsoundness than in fact exist. Well, I think what we discovered today is perhaps there is a lot of unsafety, perhaps there is a lot of unsoundness that has to be addressed. And so now we have, Mr. Speaker, we're being asked to take, really this is a historic moment, we are being asked to take a terribly flawed housing bill that could put the taxpayer on the line for $300 billion to help bail out people on Wall Street who made bad bets, and then couple that with a breathtaking, an absolutely breathtaking bailout of Fannie and Freddie that in its worst case scenario, which admittedly is unlikely, but in its worst case scenario, could add $5 trillion to the national debt at the snap of a finger. That's an increase of 50% in the national debt overnight. That's what would happen, Mr. Speaker, if you have the federal taxpayer underwrite all the debts of Fannie and Freddie. I mean, this will help establish this particular Congress as having perhaps the worst record on fiscal responsibility in our nation's history. And Mr. Speaker, they've had lots of competition. Lots of competition. There are so many different reasons why we should not pass the bill today. Let's look, number one, at the underlying housing bill. You have 95% of America that either rents their home, owns their home outright, or current in their mortgage, and they're being asked to bail out the other 5%. Now, Mr. Speaker, out of that 5%, some are very deserving. Some were victims of mortgage fraud, predatory lending. Some had bad reverses in the economy that were beyond their control. But, Mr. Speaker, others are not so deserving. Many were speculators. Many engaged in mortgage fraud themselves. There's been an explosion of mortgage fraud in the market. And then finally, Mr. Speaker, some people just didn't exercise personal responsibility. When people are struggling to pay their own mortgages who acted responsibly, they shouldn't be forced to pay for their neighbors as well, much less bail out Wall Street. Now, Mr. Speaker, maybe today, let's look at the Fannie and Freddie package. Maybe today, Fannie and Freddie, additional 30 seconds.
Gentleman's time has expired.
Give the gentleman additional 30 seconds, please.
Gentleman is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, I regrettably admit that today Fannie and Freddie are too big to fail. The repercussions to our economy could be dire. But we should not pass any legislation that doesn't ensure the taxpayers are never here again. And not only does this legislation not ensure that, it makes it worse. I mean, even the Washington Post, not exactly a bastion of conservative thought, said, quote, strangely, though, both the Senate and House versions of the bill potentially increase the very risk Mr. Paulson's plan is intended to mitigate. Don't give these people a blank check. Vote this down.
Gentleman's time has